Hi, in this video we'll have a look at how you can record your expenses in the Rhino app. So the first thing we need to check is that feature is enabled. So we click on the Rhino menu and we can see it doesn't appear here. So to enable it, we just click on System Settings, click on User Types. We go into Full Access, which is the default user type that's assigned to someone when they first register a Rhino account. And we just edit it and we switch on expenses. You can also switch on expense approval, but that's for companies that have more than one employee, where you want your employees to input their expenses and to submit them maybe at the end of the week, and then you can approve them and you can process the payment. But for now we'll keep it simple. We'll just enable this. Another nice little tip is to enable the dashboard, and we can also make the dashboard our default screen when we first log in. So we now click on Save, and if we click on the Rhino icon up at the top, that will take us to our home screen. And as we enable invoicing and other financial information, the screen will build up and starts to become quite interesting. So to enter an expense, all we do is click on Expense. It inputs today's date, it inputs your name by default, and then you can select the expense type. So we have a list of expense types which are definable, so you can set up your own. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So we're just going to select accommodation. We enter in the total amount. And then if you've got a VAT receipt, you can actually input the amount of VAT that you wish to reclaim. We don't automatically calculate this because on some invoices that you receive, there could be multiple VAT rates. And because you're going to reclaim this, potentially back off the government, then it's important that this figure is accurate. You can also type in a description, maybe the name of the hotel and the location of the hotel. And you can also attach a receipt. Now it's really useful. You can attach a PDF, or if you're using Rhino on your phone, you can also take a photograph of a receipt. You can also use repeat, the repeat feature, where you can say that you want this expense to be entered every week, every quarter, every month, up until a particular date. So from this date up to this date. So that's quite a nice feature, but once again, you don't have to use that. So to save this expense, click on Save. Now, because I've entered in an amount in the VAT field, strictly speaking, I should have attached a receipt. But because we're just doing a demo here, we'll just click on No. And that's it. And if I click on the back button, I can now see my receipt. If I want to enter in another entry, this time I'm going to use a slightly different type of expense. So I'm going to use a per unit expense. So this is where maybe I've got, I want to record mileage. So I click on this. Instead of entering in an amount, I just enter in the number of miles. It's automatically taken the per unit multiplier from this expense type. And if I scroll out of this, it automatically calculates the amount for me. And typically what you do is you'd enter in a description of the journey. So maybe Leicester to London return. The other thing you'll notice is it's not asking me to attach a receipt. So we've configured this expense type and it's not relevant to actually attach a receipt. So we just click on Save. And once again, we can click on Back, or you can click up here to go to the home screen. And we can now see all of our expenses building up. Next thing we'll look at is defining the expense types. So because we've enabled expenses, we can now click here and we can see a list of expense types. Okay, so we've got accommodation, meals, and so on. If you want to remove any of these or change them, then it's easy. So we can just click on this, for example, edit, and because there's no expenses attached to it, we can just delete it. An important thing is if you go to delete an expense, and if there's expenses logged against it, it won't let you delete it. So in that particular case, you can just click on it and make it inactive by moving this toggle over here. Yeah. To look at an expense type, we click up here, and this is where we configure it. So we click on it and we say it's not a per unit expense type, so not like mileage, whatever. We say we do want to capture the tax rate, and in the event that we're going to include this expense and bill it onto the customer, we can say what tax rate we want to apply to that. We're also saying that we want to store or capture the receipt for this expense, and we also want to record notes. This is interesting down here because if you think about it, an employee could incur an expense using their own card, and at that point they would have to reclaim it off the company. If you're using a company card, then you could enable this option. Or if you want to record a supplier bill, you can also just enable this, and then when you go to record the expense, it'll ask you to select the supplier, and then you know who you need to pay, which is quite useful. This is slightly more advanced in that if you're using the project management side, we have different task types. We have materials based and we have effort based, and sometimes you wouldn't necessarily want an expense to be logged against an effort based task. So some of these are advanced and so on. The only ones you really need to worry about are these up here. Just get these right and you can ignore some of this. Yeah. So we click on, I'll just cancel that. The other expense type we'll look at is a per unit expense. So we click on here, click on edit, and we can see that this is now a per unit expense. And for that, we input the per unit multiplier, i.e. how many pence per mile or per kilometer. We input a descriptor per mile. We don't want to attach a receipt because it's not relevant. We do want to record notes, and then the rest of this is the same. Yeah. So all you got to do to record expenses is you enable the feature, you double check the expense types before you start, and then you simply start recording your expenses. Okay, we'll catch you in the next video.